Hello, Burger. Hello, Feisty. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Hope you're doing good today. How are you doing, Feisty? You're the one that's beautiful. Wrong Twitch. Give me a sec. There we go. I'm good. Thank you so much for asking. Hello, Twitch chat. I'm putting you to sleep tonight, even though I feel extremely hyper and I'm actively losing brain cells right now. You could use the sleep. Good. Then we're gonna read stories. Thank you for liking, by the way, Feisty. Glad to hear that you're good. I'm gonna be a good French girl and light up my cigarette. And now we can start. You don't have to react to chat if you don't want to. I'm just going to read and try to get you settled down and relaxed. And thank you for the hard tea, you Feisty. I really appreciate it. I'm going to put this right here. This might be a 1 hour stream and not a 2 hours one, depending on how fast I read. All right, so I picked up a few stories blind, by the way, so I'm going to discover these with you. And I'm going to start with Jeffrey the Seagull. Every day, in good or bad weather, large and small ships passed through a narrow waterway along a rocky coastal landscape. The old lighthouse guided their way, ensuring visibility even at night and during heavy storms. Jeffrey the Seagull loved spending his time at the beach. There, he watched the ships come and go, dreaming of the adventures of the seafarers. One day, as he was eating a lugworm, Jeffrey was startled from his daydream by loud honking. He flew towards the harbor, where he could see many large ships crowding in the narrow waterway. It was pure chaos. Jeffrey scratched his head with his wing, because he can do that. No one knew the harbor as well as he did, and there had never been such a chaos here. After all, the lighthouse always helped bring the ship safely into the harbor. Yeah, apparently Jeffrey's a furry. Then it became clear to him. The light in the lighthouse must not be working. Bad weather was forecast for that afternoon and the next few days. Jeffrey watched as a thick fog rolled in over the harbor and rain started to pour. The large ships were dangerously close to shore and each other as they now also struggled to see. Jeffrey thought about how he could help. He had an idea. He grabbed a small lantern and tied it around his neck. Then he flew into the harbor. The waves were getting bigger and Jeffrey could barely see a beak's length ahead of him. But he was not afraid. He knew he was the only one who could help now. No one had studied the lighthouse signals for as long or as closely as he had. As the honking grew louder and the smell of engine oil grew stronger, Jeffrey knew that he had reached the first ship. He saw a large red wall looming in front of him. He had never been this close to a ship before. He changed course and flew upward. He landed on the ship's railing to get his bearings. It was rocking terribly and the storm was so strong that he had to cling to the railing so that he wasn't blown away. Carefully, he waddled around on the rusted iron bar. He wanted to see where the front of the ship was. Finally, he turned on his lantern and flew up to the bridge. The beam of light made its way through the thick fog. His feathers were wet and heavy, but he didn't mind. Jeffrey liked the stormy sea. When he saw a large pane of glass in front of him, he knew he had found where the captain of the ship usually sits. Captains steered these huge steel blocks through the ocean using lighthouses for orientation. Jeffrey moved his lantern up and down when he saw an old, bearded man with a blue cap peering through the thick glass pane. He wondered how long this captain had been on this ship. The captain saw Jeffrey and looked quite astonished. He pinched himself to make sure that he had not fallen asleep and started dreaming about a seagull with a lantern around its neck. But it seemed to be real. Ahead of him, a soaking wet seagull was flying up and down, eagerly swinging a yellow lantern towards the west. "Is that bird really trying to show me the way?" the captain asked his officer. The latter looked at him strangely and replied, "This seagull may be the only creature that can get us out of this storm alive." Kingman, welcome. Thank you for joining. Currently reading Jeffrey the Seagull. Jeffrey was getting tired. His wings grew heavy as the storm raged on. "What are they waiting for?" he thought. "I can't fly in place for much longer." Suddenly the ship honked and the engine grew louder. It hummed and rattled, and a large black cloud enveloped Jeffrey. No longer able to see, he flew up into the sky as fast as he could. From there, he could see the shadow of the ship as it changed course towards the west. Just in time, thought Jeffrey, watching the ship narrowly, avoiding a big sharp rock. But there was no time to rest. There were still many ships waiting for Jeffrey's help that day. The end. So that was Jeffrey the Seagull. We can now move on to another story. Shoot. Give me one sec. Hey, Red. How are you doing? Good to see you here. Where are you finding the stories? Google is my best friend. I'm glad to hear that you're good, Red. How are you doing, Kingman, by the way? Didn't ask because I was in the middle of a story. And thank you for the likes, by the way. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the heart eyes, Feisty. Okay, so next story is Timothy and Melvin find lodging. Muscle sore at the back better than last night. Is it work that's making you feel like that? Or maybe you're working out? Make sure to stretch and drink plenty of water. Hello, Ace. Welcome back. Good to see you here. How are you doing? Not bad posture while sitting at work. Oh, I get that. I totally feel that. I do not know how to sit properly on a chair. I'm currently sitting cross-legged on my chair. Either that or I sit like Ryuzaki from Death Note. Because I don't know, it feels weird to put my feet on the ground. When you have no work, you tend to move around. Depends. It depends. Okay, so Timothy and Melvin find lodging. Can I get the Nexus fan server link? I must admit I don't have it, Ace. Ace, you should probably check Twitter. They will probably give it to you. Oh, Kingman has it? I'll let you deal with that. Okay. An old woman lived in an old cottage at the edge of the forest. The house was much too big for just one person, so she rented out the attic to a young woman. This way, she was not alone, and the young woman could help her with the groceries and take care of the gardening. As winter approached, the young woman worked in the garden every day. She raked the fallen leaves into a big pile, trimmed the bushes, and swept the paths. In one of the large piles of leaves, two little mice had taken up residence quite unnoticed. It was cozy and warm amongst the many leaves and twigs. At this time of year, all the animals were looking for safe and warm winter homes. One day, when the young woman went into the garden, she forgot to close the door to the house. One of the little mice, who was named Timothy, ran in and down the hall as fast as the wind. He soon found himself in the middle of the old woman's kitchen. It smelled of freshly baked bread. Cake crumbs and even some old apple peels were scattered all over the floor. The old woman's sight was poor, so she did not even notice when she dropped something. For Timothy, it was a feast. He wanted to stay here forever. The second little mouse, who was named Melvin, ran up the stairs to the attic where the young woman lived. Melvin sniffed his way from one room to the other, but he could not find a single crumb. The young woman was very tidy and always mopped the floor until it was spotless. It smells like delicious bread downstairs, Melvin thought. He was about to run through the apartment and back down the stairs when the young woman returned from the garden. She closed the apartment door behind her, locking Melvin in. Oh dear, thought Melvin, what am I going to do now? You guys are like dealing. It sounds like you're dealing drugs in my chat. I'm 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 pretending I'm not seeing anything. Don't worry. Don't worry. Hello, Nano. Hope you're doing good today, Nano. Thank you for liking. Well, today, this evening. This evening. He quickly found a hiding place behind the bookshelves where he stayed all night with his stomach growling. Early the next morning, when Melvin could barely stand his hunger and any longer, he crawled out of his hiding place. At that same moment, the young woman went out to go out the door. When she spotted Melvin, she shrieked, "Yikes!" Melvin was equally frightened and ran as fast as he could down the stairs through the narrow gap in the door. Trembling and breathless, he stood in front of the front door and found a crack to slip through. Outside, he tried to calm himself down from the shock. Timothy noticed and hurried over to console his friend. This is how mice have heart attacks, guys. After a warm greeting, they ran into the kitchen together and Timothy showed Melvin all the leftovers on the floor. They prepared a delicious feast. Timothy was quite proud to present his friend with such perfect lodging. They decided to spend the winter there together. It was warm, cozy, and above all, there was plenty to eat. When the old woman woke up in the morning to prepare tea in the kitchen, she didn't notice any of the night's excitement and they all lived happily together in the old cottage all winter long. How are you doing, Nano? Chilling? Trying to find sleep? I'm good. Thank you so much for asking. Trying to stay hydrated because I'm going to read a lot. I wonder how many stories we need to knock out. Well, I have plenty. I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 11 or 12 stories prepared. And I'm going into them blind. Check some Coke Zero. It's a way to keep yourself awake, no. Sugar gets you hyper. Okay, this one is Susan, a very special zebra. That's funny. Thank you for the heart eyes, Feisty. One hot afternoon, Jasper the lion, Richard the meerkat, and Susan the zebra were lounging on a hill under a shady tree. From here, they had a great view of the African savannah. Since the rainy season was almost over, and the bushes and trees hung full of green leaves, a lot of animals had been gathering at the watering holes. Feisty, do you want me to send you a kiss back? If you look at Nexas related tweets, you can see him. Oh, Nano is in Twitch chat. Hello, Nano. From their shady spot, the three friends enjoyed watching them. They found the large elephants especially entertaining as they could suck vast amounts of water into their long trunks. I need to not react to that. If this keeps up, the watering hole would dry up in a few days, said Richard. Jasper and Susan were only listening with one ear. They were busy with their card game. Are every animal furries in this in these stories, Jesus? Just as Susan was about to put down her last card and joyfully announce her win, a passing wild beast stopped and looked at them. What a strange zebra you are, the wild beast said, looking Susan over from top to bottom. Richard jumped up and stood in front of her. Who are you and what exactly is strange about our friend? He said defensively. You don't see it? The wild beast asked, still looking at Susan in amazement. Now Jasper also sat up and asked, what exactly don't we see? Jasper and Richard both looked Susan up and down. Richard said, I don't see anything. That's how Susan always looks. Susan felt very uncomfortable. She had never been examined like this before, nor had anyone called her strange. She would have liked to hide completely behind her friends or crawl behind a tree, but it was too late. Now the entire herd of wild beasts stopped to stare. They were looking at Susan and mumbling to themselves. Oh God, social anxiety. The smallest and youngest wild beast of the herd was the last to notice the three friends under the tree and called out happily, look at the zebra under the tree. It only has 3 stripes. I've never seen that before. Everyone turned to look at Susan. Jasper and Richard also counted her stripes. They're right, said Jasper. You only have 3 stripes. I've never noticed that before. Now that it was vocalized, it no longer seemed particularly interesting, and the herd started moving on. Susan would have loved to vanish into thin air. Richard sensed Susan's discomfort. It doesn't matter what those wild beasts say, he said cheerfully. I never noticed your stripes before. Forget about them. Why didn't you ever tell me that I only have 3 stripes? Susan said angrily. Richard and Jasper looked at each other and shook their heads trying to think of something to say, but it was too late. Susan lowered her head and ran away. Worried about their friend, Richard and Jasper tried to figure out what to do next. Those mean wild beasts, said Jasper. How dare they just come by here and make fun of our friend? The next morning, the 3 friends had arranged to play ball with some other animals. Everyone had already started to set up the field when Susan joined them. Hi, Susan. Want to play goalie? Asked the giraffe. Sure, Susan answered confidently. Richard and Jasper looked at each other. From a distance, it looked like Susan had more stripe than the day before. I guess everything is fine again, Jasper said uncertainly. Everyone positioned themselves on the field and Jasper and Richard forgot all about it. The ball changed sides several times, and the player could hardly see each other because of the dust that had been kicked up. Suddenly, there was a loud thunder in the sky. Within a very short time, they were all soaked by an enormous rain shower. Hello, Sora, welcome. Thank you for joining. Hope you're doing good. As quickly as the rain had come, it disappeared again. Everyone was still standing in their position. Susan had the ball under her roof. Susan, said the rhino, what happened to your fur and why is the ball all black now? The other turned towards Susan, who was also looking down at herself. She was standing in a puddle of black paint, and her fur was patchy and gray. Susan must have painted the stripes on herself to look like the others, Richard whispered to Jasper. Creating a diversion, Richard drew the attention of the other players, and Susan took advantage of the moment to quickly escape their gaze. The next day, the 3 friends were invited for a cake at Jasper's grandmother's house. She loved to have visitors. Jasper and Richard were waiting at Grandma's garden fence when Susan finally joined them. At the same moment, Jasper's grandmother came out of her house and welcomed the 3 friends from the hot afternoon sun. The birds are loud. Susan, what are you doing with a raincoat in this heat? Asked Jasper's grandmother. Susan told her about the sudden rain shower yesterday afternoon and that from now on she would always wear a raincoat to be on the safe side. Social anxiety? Jasper's grandmother assured her that there would be no danger of rain in her house and took her coat. When everyone was sitting at a table, Susan gathered all her courage to ask Jasper's grandmother, who always knew everything, how many stripes a real zebra should have. What makes you think there are real zebras? That would mean that zebras who have more or fewer stripes than others are not real? Jasper's grandmother looked at the three curious faces at her kitchen table as she passed out the delicious cake. Susan told Jasper's grandmother about the events of the last few days and about the wild beast who had said that Susan was a strange zebra because she only had three stripes. Jasper's grandmother smiled and went to get an old photo album. I'm going to show you some very special friends I've had the pleasure of meeting on my many travels, she explained. The three friends saw animals they had never seen before in the photos. Jasper's grandmother pointed out a turtle, panda bear, and a large kangaroo. Do you notice anything strange about my friends? She asked. What do you think? Do they look kind of strange? The three friends looked at each other and Richard said, No, they look very nice and they have some exciting adventures. Jasper's grandmother nodded. She told them that the turtle's name is Patricia and that she's one of her oldest friends. She also pointed out that Patricia's shell has a very different pattern than other turtles. She shared that the panda bear is named Lee. Is that racist? And he has one longer ear than often falls into his face when he runs. And that the kangaroo, called Donna, has no pouch. Instead, she always carries a small backpack. Jasper's grandmother told them all about her friends' exciting adventures. There are no braver animals than these three, she said, patting Suzanne on the shoulder. Dinger Piddles, welcome. Thank you for joining. So, you see, there is no right or wrong, real or fake. You are wonderful just the way you are, no matter how many stripes you have. We told you, Susan, said Jasper and Richard in unison. Really spread throughout the group, and everyone enjoyed Grandma's delicious cake. And that's the end for Susan. Yay, cake! They end the day with cake. A good cake. I have Leo the cat bakes waffles. I immediately thought of Leo Bell. I'm just gonna be back, grab some water, because I already drank all of it. Give me a minute. I'm back with water. And I might as well close the window because the rain and birds are a bit loud. Thank you. Well, I've seen everything. I'm looking at an old Japanese video of a woman married a mannequin. I mean, there's a guy that married Hatsune Miku. So, you can find everything. I want to say to each their own. At least Miku was moving. Was it? Was it moving? I thought he had like a giant doll or something. Also, hello, Raccoon. Welcome back. Hope you're doing good today. What do you mean they fell out of love? What is happening? Did he divorce her? Thank you for liking, by the way, Raccoon. Okay. So Leo the cat, the cat bakes waffles. They stopped updating the program because the company went out of business. Was it the home um the home assistant or something? I was tripping when I saw this when I was like younger. It looked cool. Okay, the system was outdated. I see. I see. I see. Okay, so Leo the cat bakes waffles. Um, which reminds me of the pancake or waffle debate. Pancake in the morning, waffle in the afternoon. Waffle. Feisty says waffle. Kingman craves waffles. Waffles are more of a snack to me, and pancakes are better for breakfast. Okay, one Sunday, Leo the cat's family was having friends over for a visit. I prefer the HK bubble waffle. The bubble waffles are great. I love them. They taste great. Leo enjoyed it very much when guests came to their house because they would always play and cuddle with him. Leo would be the center of attention the whole time. If he was lucky, someone would hold him and rub his ears for hours. Sounds like good pampering. That day, there were delicious smells coming from the kitchen. The family was preparing waffle batter. Leo especially loved the milk that went into the batter. He could sniff it from anywhere in the house. Leo was very good at observing. Nothing escaped him, and today was no different. He sat down on the tile floor of the kitchen and closely followed the waffle preparations. Of course, of course, he was always hopeful that he would get some scraps. Maybe something would spill on the floor and he would get to lick it up. But not this time, what a pity. He dreamed of tasting the milk, but Leo's family always fed him at specific times. They worried that he might get too fat. I do not have a tongue toggle, but blah, feisty. I wish I could use toggles on here. That would be cool. Soon, I'll remain hopeful. When the delicious smelling waffles were ready, his mom sprinkled them with powdered sugar and served them to the guests. Unable to resist sweet things, Leo ran to each guest in turn, meowing affectionately to see if he could get them to share their waffles. But every guest followed the rule about not feeding the cat. With a sigh, he took one last sniff of the delicious scent and retreated to the sofa. That's when he had an idea. He would wait for the next day when everyone went to work and he had the whole kitchen to himself. Then he could do whatever he wanted. That night he could hardly sleep because he was so excited. The next morning, the family said goodbye to Leo the cat. As usual, his mom said, "Be a good boy, have a nice day, and we'll see you tonight." Meow, Leo replied like always, which meant, "Of course I will." As soon as the door closed, Leo got to work. "I'm going to have waffles on my own for once," he thought to himself. Leo grabbed an apron like his family always did and tied it around his waist. Why are all the animals able to do that in these stories? Bro said meow and started cooking. "Here we go. First, I'll need a bowl. But it's all the way up in the cupboard. I need a ladder," he thought to himself. "Phew, how exhausting," grumbled Leo as he gathered the flour, sugar, butter, eggs, milk, and a pinch of salt. "It's a good thing I watched so closely yesterday. They make it look so easy." Fortunately, the waffle iron and mixer were still on the countertop, all clean and shiny from the day before. Perfect! Leo thought he started to mix the batter. He was quite proud of his results until he noticed that the flour had dusted the entire countertop. Suddenly, his nose itched. Oh no! It's it! Leo had sneezed so hard that dough stuck to his mustache and flour covered the floor around him. Meow, I'll clean that up later, he thought. So sometimes he speaks normally and sometimes he says meow in the middle of his things. He grabbed the mixer and started whisking the dough. Oh my, it's splattering everywhere. Leo was covered in batter, but he was happy to lick it off and continued diligently. As he tasted the dough with his paw, he thought, meow, a little more sugar would be good. Leo kept tasting and adjusting until the dough was nice and sweet. Now it was the time to turn on the waffle iron and cook the waffle. He scooped the batter with the ladle, but he was no longer sure how much to use. The batter spilled onto the countertop. Never mind that, Leo thought to himself. I just finished my very first waffle. It was a little burnt, but Leo ate it with relish. And so it went until several waffles later the cat grabbed his belly and doubled over in pain. Meow, all those waffles are making my tummy hurt, he whined. I need to rest a bit before I clean up. He climbed up his cat tree with the last of his strength and laid down, but he could hardly relax. He looked at the kitchen clock and thought, Meow, it's almost 5. The family would be home soon and he still had to clean up. With a terrible stomachache, he got up and rinsed all the dishes in the sink and put them away. He mopped the floor furiously and swept it with his tail, but even after all that, everything was still so sticky. Just as he was done cleaning, he heard the key in the lock and watched as the front door opened. His family called out to him like usual, and he heard his mother say in surprise, It sure smells like waffles in here. She went to feed Leo, who usually couldn't get enough of his food, but today he wouldn't eat a thing. He was exhausted and his belly was sticky from all the sugar. She scratched Leo behind the ears and said, You're all sticky. What did you get up to today? Are you not feeling well, Leo? I think you should go to sleep early and get some rest. Meow, meow, meow. Leo the cat quickly agreed before jumping into his basket so she couldn't ask him any more questions. That was close. I'll never do anything like that again, he thought as he fell asleep. And that was Leo the cat baking waffles. Mm-mm-mm. I have more Leo the cat stories. And I have, oh god, 5 parts for the little panda Lee. Do these stories have a theme? Um, there's somewhat stories for kids. They're mostly based around animals. But did I actually look up for a theme? Not really. Yeah, they're all animals. Drinking. Okay, so I got Leo the cat needs to see a doctor. More Leo the cat. Actually, the day started really well for Leo the cat. He lounged neatly on his beloved windowsill and yawned relaxed. This cat is trouble. Seems like it. He managed to make waffles by himself. The first rays of sunlight illuminated the large room and announced a beautiful spring day. High time for a delicious breakfast, Leo decided enthusiastically. This cat loves food. This cat is a foodie. He stretched and strolled leisurely into the kitchen. People were still asleep, and that's when Leo had a wonderful idea. Always having breakfast alone is boring. Today, I'll really surprise my family and set the breakfast table for everyone, he mused. In a really good mood, Leo got started. With a nimble jump, he landed on the countertop, opened the cupboard doors, and rummaged out colorful cups, plates, and egg cups. He very carefully transported them to the table. I think this is everything they usually put up on the table, he reflected briefly. Well, they might be amazed, he gloated. To be on the safe side, he looked over his handiwork again, but still wasn't quite satisfied. Oh yes, it's still missing a few flowers. With flowers, everything looks cozier. That's what he always heard from his humans before. He quickly dashed out the patio door, through the built-in hatch, and plucked 3 tulips. These were the only flowers in the garden right now. Quietly, he walked back inside. Shh, don't wake anyone up. It's supposed to be a surprise, he thought to himself. Conveniently, the vase Leo needed for the flowers was already in the sink. So fill it up with water and put in the flowers, he purred happily. The vase full of water was heavier than Leo imagined, but somehow he managed to place it in the middle of the large table. Meow. Now I'm really hungry. Now all that's left is to put the flowers in the vase, and then breakfast can begin. He grabbed the tulips and was about to put them in the jar when suddenly a large bumblebee, buzzing loudly, flew out of one of the tulips. Leo was startled. He had not expected that at all. He hadn't had much experience with buzzing creatures before. He reached for it with his paw and forgot that he was standing in the middle of the beautifully lit breakfast table. And there it was. A plate and a cup fell from the table and broke on the tiled floor with a loud crashing clink. The cat was still standing on his hind paws, flailing his two front paws at the buzzing bumblebee in an attempt to catch it. The bumblebee was quite unimpressed by this, however, and flew off towards the window. Leo jumped off the table, chasing the bumblebee. He landed on the broken dishes, and a loud and whining meow resounded throughout the house. This cat is trouble. This cat is trouble. The cat had injured one of his paws, and a shard was still stuck in his paw. Ouch. Meow, it hurt so much, wailed Leo. What am I going to do now? And when a small drop of blood appeared, Leo felt queasy. What's all that noise in the morning? Leo heard his human shout. And why is there such a mess around here? They were standing in the kitchen by now, bending down to the cat. Leo's master took an examining look at the paw, very carefully pulled out the shard and dabbed it with some stuff that burned a little. It's not too bad, Leo, he said to the cat. We'll get that fixed up. It will heal real soon, he comforted him. And then he carried the cat to his basket. So now Leo lay there, injured, alone, and also quite hungry. I had this morning so beautifully thought out. It was supposed to be a great breakfast together, he grumbled. And then such a mishap, that's how it's pronounced. Meow. Luckily, they were not mad at me at all, which calmed down Leo a bit. He looked at and licked his injured paw and again, but it didn't hurt so much anymore. Now he heard the humans talking, and he pricked up his ears curiously. I think that's very nice of you to set the breakfast table so nicely. It looks so pretty with the tulips, the woman said to her husband. The very same ones are blooming in our flower bed at the moment. Oh, and I thought it was you, the husband replied, puzzled and busy getting the sweeper and mop out of the closet. But what was Leo doing on the table again? He knows perfectly well that he's not allowed to, the woman continued. And the beautiful dishes, I guess I'll have to have a serious talk with our Leo about that. But first, the doctor has to look at his paw. I'll make an appointment at the doctor's office right away. So is it a vet or a doctor? Are you treating your cat as a human or as a pet? I am confused. The cat found the conversation quite funny at first because his humans, as so often, did not catch on to him when he gave them a surprise. He almost forgot about his pain and smirked slightly, but after he heard that he had to go to the doctor, his mood visibly changed. Marker, welcome. Thank you for joining. Hope you're doing good. Who knows what the doctor will do to me? The thought of the upcoming appointment made Leo all nervous. He's not going to give me a shot, is he? The cat's furry hair stood up in an instant. It always did when he didn't like something. Let the bumblebee go to the doctor, it's all because of her, he whined angrily. In the meantime, the shards in the kitchen were already cleaned up and nothing reminded of the small incident. Leo was about to make himself comfortable when his humans came along with a strange box into which he should now climb. Transport basket, they called the thing. It didn't seem to occur to them that one could get claustrophobic in it. I'm not going in there, he was about to protest. Nothing hurts me anymore either. But before he knew it, everyone was in the car and the ride was on. Leo felt very uncomfortable, as he always did when he didn't know what was coming. Cat behavior. It didn't get any better when they entered the vet's office and took a seat in the waiting room. Somewhat comforting was that a few fellow sufferers seemed to be just as reluctant to visit the doctor as he was. They expressed this with quiet whimpers. Leo was very nervous, and when it finally was his turn, he would have preferred to stay in the narrow box, but it was no use. He was gently taken out and found himself on a kind of couch. The doctor had a pleasant voice and talked to his humans. Then, after a few crawls, the doctor began his examination. He was thoroughly palpated. The paw was examined under a thick magnifying glass, and the all clear was given. There's no need for an injection. The wound is tiny and just needs a quick cleaning. For protection, we just put a bandage on. Then no dirt can get into the wound. In a few days, everything will be forgotten. The doctor announced. Why would you give a shot to a cat that just... Sophia, welcome. Thank you for joining, and thank you for the heart. I really appreciate that. Thank you. This doesn't feel bad at all, Leo thought. In fact, it's quite nice here, so all that excitement was for nothing again, meow. Leo's mood improved abruptly. A few minutes later, everyone was already back in the car and on their way home. Oh, Leo, said the woman, the things you always do. It's a good thing today is our day off. I can't imagine what would have happened if you had been home alone. Please pay a little more attention next time. And a cat has no business on the table anyway, you know that. And continued to scratch him behind the ears. The man praised Leo. You did really well today at the doctor's office. You were really well behaved. Sure thing, the cat thought. I'm not a scaredy cat, and purred to himself quite proudly and contentedly. After that, the man turned to his wife and said, Who actually set the table this morning? Leo grinned and looked forward to his home. This felt odd. Leo relationship is more child than cat. Yeah. I mean, to some people, their pets are very much like their kids. So I heard that saying that was like, pets are the new kids and plants are the new pets. So I think it's a bit like that with Leo the cat. It's not the vet, it's the doctor. Thank you for the thanks, Kingman. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Dun, dun, dun. I'm gonna read about Jasper, the thoughtful lion, the friend of Susan. So, Jasper, the thoughtful lion. Jasper the lion could hear their laughter even from a distance. Susan the zebra and Richard the meerkat playfully raced through the dry grass, kicking up dust and sand. When they were completely out of breath, they ran over to the shady spot where Jasper was sitting. Hey Jasper, come play with us, said Susan. What's the matter, Jasper? Richard asked, noticing Jasper's mood. What were you thinking about? Jasper didn't really know what he had just been thinking about. Sounds like ADHD to me. Just keep playing without me, he mumbled. Susan and Richard looked at each other. But Jasper, you're going to miss the whole day if you keep this up, said Susan. Can we help? Maybe the three of us could think about it together. But Jasper didn't want to accept their help. Friends always stick together, said Richard. And if you don't tell us what's on your mind, we'll tickle you until you do. Susan and Richard giggled at the idea of tickling Jasper's tummy. Help. All right, I'll tell you, said Jasper before they could tickle him. There was an accident yesterday when I was visiting my grandmother. I was playing chase with my little cousin, and I was about to finally catch him when I tripped over a tree root and fell into the table. I heard a terrible crash. When I turned around, I saw Grandma's favorite teapot lying on the ground in pieces. Uh-oh. Was she very mad? Asked Susan, who sympathized with Jasper. No, she wasn't mad at all, he said. She told me not to worry about it, but I know how much she loved that teapot. Jasper looked even sadder now. Enough sulking, said Richard. Why don't we help you to glue the pieces together? Your grandma won't even notice any different from before. Jasper took out a bag with the pieces of the broken teapot. Richard got glue and a brush, and in no time the three of them had glued the teapot back together. Well, it doesn't look like new, but I'm sure your grandma will be very happy anyway, said Susan. Let's go see what she says, said Jasper. The three of them set off. They were greeted by Jasper's grandma at the garden gate. Hello, you three, she said. Do you want to have a piece of cake with me? I still have a few left over from yesterday. I can offer you juice and water to go down with it. I love some tea, said Jasper. And I have the perfect teapot, too. Jasper beamed as he handed his grandma the repaired teapot. Three are the best, said Grandma. This teapot is very old. It belonged to my grandmother. Thank you so much for fixing it. Now let's eat cake. Jasper smiled and felt all his worries melt away. They always end up with the grandma. They eat cake at the grandma's. Good night, Red. Enjoy your lurking. Whew. I'm gonna take a little break. Rehydrate. Tum tum tum. And pin that on X. There we go. Next week's schedule is gonna be a little bit less busy than today. Than this whole week, actually. I'm going to take 2 days off to take care of a few things. And for the Nexus tier list, I'm going to be recording on the side so I can post it to YouTube. For the anime first episode's reaction, I'm also going to be recording. I do not need to have a full schedule. Ideally, we are required to stream 5 days a week for 2 hours. Ideally. But nothing prevents us from taking days off. Nothing prevents us from canceling if we have like urgent matters or if we're not feeling well. That is not something we're like obligated to do. We're not going to be held at gunpoint if we don't stream 5 days a week. I've streamed 6 days a week this week, so technically I could take 3 days off, but I don't want to. I still want to keep up with a regular schedule. It's just that this time I needed 2 days off to take care of other matters, such as cleaning up, because it's a mess in my room, because I'm a hoarder. You hear the guns? Where? Where? Tell me. Where do you hear the gunshots? Who's holding me at gunpoint? She's not in America, so she's fine. Yeah, technically guns here are illegal. Even if you have a permit, you cannot walk around with a gun. Usually the people that have guns are hunters. And speaking of hunters, I would say I'm not against hunting. Some people are very against it, but I'm not against it as long as it's not like considered just a sport. Like if the said hunter used the animal he hunted for various stuff such as food or using the skin for other stuff. Like if he uses the whole animal, I don't mind it. And sort of circle of life. It depends of the treatment of the animal, you know? Like there's having a painful death and there's finishing it off quickly so there's no suffering. Like let's say it's like quote unquote ethical hunting. Also, Buggy, welcome. Thank you for joining. Hope you're doing good today. And thank you for liking. But yeah. I think any living being deserves respect. There are some animals that have a limit in hunting. Yes, as well. For example, I know for a fact that red tuna is has some regulations when it comes to fishing. Um, so I'm guessing it's the same for hunting in the forest or anywhere else. I don't know if like hunting big animals is um, legal, depending on what it is. Like I don't know if bear hunting is legal. Well, in France, we don't really have many bears. I don't think we have that much bears or any bears at all. Very few, at least. We have more wolves than anything. Wolves, foxes, squirrels. Um, what's the name of it? Wolves are very cool. Uh, give me a second. Trying to translate something. Wolves are your friends. Agreed. Usually they will not attack. Attack for no reason. It's like with most animals, they don't attack for no reason, except wasps. I hate wasps. Is it also said chamois? Oh, that's interesting. We have a lot of chamois here. So these are easy to hunt. We also have hogs, very funny little guys. I would not like to get run over by them though. Thank you for liking, Sophia. So yeah, general thing. Pew, pew. We have an area where peacock run freely. Wait, really? Peacocks are so cool. And depending if it's male or female, they look completely different. They run around the neighborhood. That's so cool. I've seen those in Portugal. That was pretty interesting to witness. Do I have another short story before I wrap up? Huh. Leo the cat again. Or I guess I could start with the little penduli and read the rest later. Google loves Leo for sure. For sure. Um, yeah, let's read one last Leo the cat story. And this one is Leo the cat and the thief. There must be somewhere up here I can make myself comfortable, Leo thought, sniffing every corner of the attic. The place wasn't particularly tidy. The attic was considered the junk room of the house. It was where anything that was no longer needed could be found. It's either that or the garage, for most people. Old dressers, dusty lampshades, worn out suitcases, and abandoned travel souvenirs from faraway countries laid scattered on the floor. Also, Kingman, thank you for liking. Time-worn pictures leaned against the walls, wrapped in cloth when there had no longer been a suitable place for them to be displayed in the apartment. All this surrounded the cat as he searched for a satisfactory place to settle. Why does my family keep all this junk? He thought, wrinkling his nose at all the dust. It smells awfully musty in here, plus it's gloomy with only these little skylights. And all these cobwebs everywhere are not very inviting. Well, meow. What I won't do to find some peace and quiet. At that moment, one was actually better off in the attic than anywhere else in the house. A burst water pipe in the bathroom had thrown the main living area into chaos. The whole living room was underwater and all the carpets were soaked. It had probably happened when Leo was sleeping on the warm windowsill because he hadn't even noticed. He had woken up hungry, and it was only when he jumped down to the floor that he had realized what a mess the room was. Wet paws are not for cats, he had thought. He had looked around for a dry patch, but the water was everywhere. Where did it all come from? He had wondered. In one leap, he had jumped back onto the windowsill to wait. A short while later, his family had come in the rooms with buckets, friends, and even the neighbors. They all had rubber boots on in the middle of the living room. You had then been unceremoniously lifted from the windowsill and set down in the hallway on the ladder up to the attic. It's going to be a few days until we get this all dry and back to the way it was, they had told him. They had shaken their heads at the mess before starting to skim the water off and mop it up. That's why Leo was now in the attic trying to find a peaceful place to rest. After a thorough examination of the space, he found it quite exciting to look out of the open skylight. Wow, it's pretty high up here. I wonder what it would be like to walk on the roof, he thought. Leo had never tried such a daring thing before. Meow, I'll just go out to the chimney to see how the view is from here, the cat thought to himself as he jumped onto the roof. Leo felt strong and brave. He strutted from one end of the roof to the other and discovered a bird's nest in the gutter. He watched excitedly as birds flew into the nest with a worm or a fly in their beaks and flew away again. When he lost interest in the birds, he leaned against the chimney and enjoyed the warm rays of sun and the warm wind on his nose. Unfortunately, his newfound peace did not last long. Suddenly, down in the courtyard, the sirens of several police cars were wailing. Leo was startled and rooted to the spot. Before he could look down to see what they were after, he saw a man approaching. He had a large heavy bag on his back and had just climbed onto the roof. He was now on his way towards the chimney where Leo was hiding. Leo didn't make a sound. He would have liked to escape, but he didn't dare look out from behind the chimney. Somehow, he knew this man was trouble. What's this guy doing on the roof? He doesn't look very friendly. Luckily, he hasn't spotted me yet, thought Leo as he circled the chimney again and again so as not to be discovered. He kept the stranger in sight. From below, an announcement sounded from the police loudspeaker. Please close all doors and windows. There is a thief on the run in the area. The cat's fur bristled. What was he supposed to do now? Are thieves dangerous to cats too? He briefly wondered. But there wasn't time for that now. He had to act. As the man was about to take the heavy sack from his shoulder and throw it down the chimney, Leo mustered all his courage. He arched his back, jumped out from behind the chimney, and hissed at the thief like a lion. Then he jumped through the skylight back to his family attic and pulled the window shut behind him. The thief was so startled he lost his balance and began to slide off the roof. He just managed to grab hold onto the gutter. His heavy back tumbled down and landed with thud down in the yard. The police looked up and discovered the thief. Now all they had to do was pull him down and take him to the police station. Leo had really not expected such excitement. No one is going to believe all this, meow, he thought to himself. My family is so busy, I'm sure they didn't even notice. A short time later, Leo's family came up to the attic, still in rubber boots and visibly exhausted. They had brought him something to eat. They opened the skylight, stuck their heads out the window, and peered at the chimney. Oh, Leo, how good that you weren't frightened by all this action. Just think. A thief tried to escape across our roof. The police asked us if we have a cat because the thief kept repeating, if the cat hadn't been there, you never would have caught me. If only you knew, Leo grinned, letting himself be scratched briefly before setting to work on his food. He had truly earned this meal. Wow. There we go. Leo beat up a thief. Okay. I'm going to start wrapping up from now on because it's been an hour. No worries. You're welcome. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope that relaxed you a little. Thank you for restreaming, Burger. I really appreciate it. Please take your time to unwind for tonight. Rest well, have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye. じゃあね